Disclaimer: this video is for entertainment purposes only. It is fully protected under fair use laws, Section 107, Statute Number 17 of the Copyright Act of 1976, which allows for criticism, commentary, teaching, and research of copyrighted materials. Title 17 provides penalties for the deliberate misrepresentation of copyright infringement. Persons, agencies, and attorneys filing a false or frivolous Digital Millennium Copyright Act DMCA complaint may be subject to civil liability. Enjoy the show, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of what I'm calling Conspiracies After Dark. I'm your host, Sandy Diva, and joining me tonight is Real or Not For Real Ever Josh, and we have a very special guest waiting backstage. How are you tonight, Josh?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing good. I think we're going to say hello to everyone, but first, let's bring to the stage our special guest, Jen. Welcome to the stage, Jen. How are you doing this evening?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here with us. We appreciate you. Really quickly, I am going to give a shout out to the room. It's not a normal show. I don't have any names written down. So from what I can see, Super Mario Brothers is first. Welcome, Super Mario Brothers, followed by Lilcam51. Parody Mike is here. We also have Josh in the chat, of course. Mr. Super Sidewinder. Daniel Ripple is here. Astral Fugitive. Pushing Button 62. And I think that's all I can see right now. I can tell there's people lurking. Right now we are streaming on Josh's channel, my channel, and on Rumble. Go-Kart Bob is here. Hello, Go-Kart Bob. Whaler Greg, welcome. Did I miss anyone else in the chat? I'm scrolling to make sure.
You say Daniel Ripple?
I did say Daniel Ripple.
Okay. And there's a few over on my channel, so I wasn't sure.
Well, while Josh is figuring out sharing this to the other channels, I'm going to give a little disclaimer here. Well, not disclaimer, but a little overview of what's happening. Jen would like to tell her story, and the story of a very special person to Jen, and their experience with the Ohio prison system, and possibly some things that are not right with how things are handled. And I'm going to leave most of the talking to her on the subject, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what's happening here tonight. Not the normal content. That's why I'm calling it Conspiracies After Dark, not Mandela related. It's okay if this isn't your cup of tea. I did write that in the description. I may do a show tonight, a small show after this at midnight normal time. But for now, if you're not interested in like true crime, Ohio, I guess, but the prison system, and you know the law, how things are handled, it's okay if you skip this one. I understand. But I do ask that you share it because this is something that YouTube probably won't push out because it's unrelated to my content. So if you can, I would appreciate it. If you don't feel comfortable, I understand that too. Welcome, Mandanimal. Using your phone or something, you come in under cold case. You come into the StreamYard with your other accounts
Oh,
and you
come into
share
this.
it. Yeah. You know, you stream it to your channel.
Oh, I gotcha.
Especially Cold Case, because this is where you were putting all of this stuff at, was on Cold Case. So Jen, would you like to get started? Is there anything you want us to tell them before we start, or you just want to get into it?
Well, when I was speaking with Josh tonight, he said that most of the people that are on tonight had heard the story when I told the story before. So I don't need to go back through the story, except that we're talking about a man who served 35 years in prison for something, for a crime he didn't commit. Prison.
All right, Jen, I'm going to have to interrupt you for 1 second. Josh, it's very hard to understand her. And I don't know how to fix this. This is why we're a couple minutes late.
Let's see, is this better? Let me just try a few things. Is this better?
That is a little better, yes.
Okay.
Now, did you say that he was sentenced to 1,000 years?
The man that committed the crime.
Wow.
Because of the horrificness of the crime, where he had, abducted 3 girls and kept them for years, and one got away. I think it was 8 years, if I'm not mistaken. And
Josh, I disagree. In case people see this, there are people here who have not seen your streams before. I would give like an abbreviated overview of what you're talking about before you get into the new stuff. So, you know what I'm going to do? While they're trying to get headsets, and since Morgan is here, who wants to hear Morgan's song? I sure do. It's been a while. Guys, enjoy Angels All Around Me. Here we go.
Watching all the clocks run backwards, slowly choking out my lungs, throwing all the stones around me until all that's left is one. Euthanasia haunt me nightly until their master's work is done. Give to all this what they're asking, while sex and death is all flesh wants. And while I've got angels all around me, lighting the fires that prevent from failing, send your waters inside me, feel your spirit inside me again. Promise life whole time in mind you, ace cards taking all that's gold, perspective curve my thought around you, milk my blood until it turns, all depressed and leaves you thirsty, I start to call robots home, our soul our forging decisions leading, until all have made their choice. While I've got angels all around me, lighting the fires that prevent from failing, send your waters inside me, feel your spirit inside me again. Watching all the clocks run backwards, slowly choking out my lungs, throwing all the stones around me until all that's left is one. Euthanasia haunt me nightly until their master's work is done. Give to all this what they're asking, while sex and death is all flesh wants.
Thank you for that, Morgan. I love your song. Really, I do. I absolutely love it. I missed it because it's not holiday. And now the holidays are over, we can play it again. We probably should have done It's Gone with Wired from the get-go. Hello, good to see you. Those of you just joining us, this is not a Mandela Effect show. This is a conspiracy corruption expose of the Ohio correctional facilities. A true crime, true story experience that is happening. I think we have audio. Jen, are you with us? Christian, are you trying to figure out why it's echoing? Because it wasn't echoing before.
How's that?
Let me see. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, great. Yeah. But yeah, I'm doing okay. How about you? To answer your question from earlier.
I'm doing great.
Awesome. Awesome.
I'm just, I just, fingers crossed this works because she has a story she needs to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot that's happening. We lost Jenny.
Oh.
We lost our special guest.
Um,
That's why I said I think she needs to give a summary of the backstory for those who haven't seen it. Seen her, heard her story before, but also, I mean, people forget. They see a lot of stuff and they forget things.
yeah.
And then you never know who's going to be watching this for the first time and has no idea what we're discussing. So I think it's best if
Yeah.
she should not start from the middle. Bad advice, Josh. Bad Josh. No, we should start from the beginning. What's pertinent, of course. There's no need to go into great detail. Just enough so people can follow.
Yeah. Good advice.
I think she has to do that. Do you want to keep your camera on or off? Josh?
Oh.
The camera's
Yeah,
on.
off. Yeah, they want the camera off. Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me.
Tell your brother I said hi.
Okay.
There you go. You got it. You got it.
Okay.
Hi.
Hello? Oh, now camera's on. Hi.
Hello.
He heard you say, tell your brother I said hi. So can you hear us now, Mom?
Yes,
Okay.
Oh, you sound great now.
it's on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know, I just took it out of my ear 5 minutes ago. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Dion.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, honey.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I'll let
All right.
Uh-oh. Jenny?
Which,
There we go.
There she is.
Yeah.
There she is. Okay. So, guys, thank you for waiting in chat. We appreciate it. I just made a post saying we're back on schedule now. With that, first of all, Jen, please meet pushing button 62. Pushing buttons.
Yeah.
Jen.
Hi.
I
Hello,
brought him
yeah.
up here to talk.
Nice to meet you, Jen. I've spoken with you through the chat, I think. A little bit, maybe.
yeah, during probably on the show that she did with me on my channel.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. It's nice to meet you. Or meet you again, if that's the case.
All right. Jenny, I'm putting you full screen. Please take it away.
Okay, let's try that and see
Okay.
if that works.
That sounds good.
A girl named
Yeah.
Mary, a guy named Carl, and they met at a Jerry Lewis telethon. And Carl was always doing community service. He and Mary fell in love. Mary had a mother named Kitty. Who?
What does he live on the laptop?
Okay. All right. And so they fell in love, and Mary had a mother named Kitty. And Kitty had a boyfriend named Ariel Castro.
Jenny, are you still with us?
Okay, let's try this again. So anyway, Kitty's boyfriend was Ariel Castro, who later was sent to prison for abducting girls, 3 girls, and holding them for 8 years. And so he was then convicted. One of the girls got loose, told on him. He was convicted and sent to prison and only lasted for 10 100-year sentences or something like that. And he lasted about a week in prison.
All right, pause for 1 second. For those of you in the chat, she's speaking about the case where the girls were in the house for years and no one knew.
8 years.
8 years. I remember it clear as day. It was a horrible case.
It was
And it was a
over.
miracle.
Yeah, it was nationwide on the news.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So Carl ran into Ariel at Mary and Kitty's house because Carl was there for Mary. Ariel was there for Kitty. They were lovers. And she broke up with him. And he told Carl, if I can't have her, nobody can have her. A month later, she's found bludgeoned to death in her. What was the last thing you heard me say?
She was found bludgeoned in her
Living room. Okay. And Carl and Mary walked in and found her there. And Carl leaned down to take her pulse and got blood on his sweats and got up immediately and called 911. And the police came and were questioning him and Mary. And he and Mary was crying, and Carl said, "Leave her alone. She just lost her mother." And Carl waited for them to come. And then when he said that, they threw handcuffs on him and threw him in a chair. Later on, they took him to jail, and they arrested both of them and consequently turned Mary loose, and she was handicapped. She had multiple sclerosis. So Carl went to jail, went to trial. The attorney offered him $75,000 if he would confess. If he could come up with $75,000, he'd never see the courtroom. There was a guy in his cell, and he looked at him. He was a drug dealer, and said, "If you can come up with $100,000, you will never see the courtroom." He opened a suitcase that his friend was with him, and gave the attorney the suitcase, and the guy walked out of the courtroom. And
All right, I'm going to stop you right there. So that is the first sign of corruption. Like, I can't even imagine that. Like, they're just paying off the judge.
Exactly. And the prosecutor. So then they took, Carl went to trial, and they offered him 7 to 20 if he would confess. And he said, "I can't confess. I'm a Christian, and I'm not going to lie about something I didn't do. And I didn't do anything, so I'll just go to trial because I'm not going to be convicted because I'm innocent." Wrong. So they convicted him and gave him 30 to life. He has now served 35 years. And I met him years ago, but became close friends with him a year ago, in December. And and then now we're going to go into the next thing. In February of 25, he stepped in a hole in the prison hall where the tile was broke, and his knee popped because he had pins in it, and he was in excruciating pain, and he went to medical, and they looked at it and said it was arthritis. And he said, "You don't get arthritis from falling in a hole." And they refused to treat him for 10 months. Okay, so that was February. So I kept calling and demanding treatment and asking for treatment and begging for treatment. He was limping. He's limping to this day. Probably has a permanent damage from
One
not
second.
being.
We're going to pause you there because there's something you skipped. Shouldn't they have given him a test to make sure it wasn't arthritis?
No,
Oh, okay. I thought
they don't waste money on anything.
but that's what I wanted you to say.
Okay.
So he did need a test. It's just
Yes.
that they didn't want to spend the money.
Right. Well, he may have had arthritis in that knee because he's 64 years old.
Of
But
course.
that's not what caused him to limp, because before he fell in the hole, he wasn't limping,
Right.
arthritis or not.
So someone who's not in prison, if you trip or hurt yourself, even if you're younger, say my age, 49 years old, the first thing they have to do for insurance reasons is do an x-ray. And they may see arthritis. But your doctor's going to say, "But you weren't limping before that incident. I'm going to order a CAT scan or an MRI." Most likely a CAT scan, because an insurance company's more likely to cover a CAT scan because it's cheaper. In the prison system, it's just arthritis. Go back to your cell. That's what happened to Carl, correct?
Yes. And so the leg swelled up to 3 times the size, and they wanted to give him an ACE bandage. He wanted an MRI. I called and talked to the medical director, wanted an MRI. They said, no, it's arthritis. And so they refused to do anything about him. And we kept on calling and calling and calling, and I just don't give up. And all of a sudden, one day he gets a call to come upstairs to a certain room. He goes up there, and there's a big burly guy, white guy with bald head. And he says, "You Carl Wages?" He says, "Yes." "Sit down." He says, "And what would your name be?" He says, "I don't have to tell you my name." "Sit down." And Carl said, "I am not going to speak with you until you tell me your name." He says, "You and your family better back off of calling here all the time. calling, and I had called the governor's office 12 times, and I had called headquarters numerous times, complaining that he couldn't get treatment, to no avail. And so Carl said, I'm leaving now. When you decide you want to tell me your name, I'll have a conversation with you. So he walked out. Another inmate says to him, what's the intimidator doing here with you? And Carl says, what do you mean? He says, this guy is an intimidator, and they call him down when somebody's making too much noise. And Carl said, oh, and by the way, the guy said to him, you better tell your family to be quiet. And Carl said, that is not going to happen. And so he walked out and he left. And he asked the inmate, he says, what was that guy's name? And he said, I would rather not get involved, which you can understand that.
Yeah.
So then the next day he gets another call. He goes back up to the same room, and there's a man there, and he says, my name is David Downton, and I'm an attorney from Legal Aid, and I'm here to help you with your medical issues. And he says, tell me about your medical issues. And Carl goes through the whole thing, month by month by month. And Mr. Dalton said, so Carl thinks that he's talking to an attorney, and he has attorney-client privilege when he's talking to this man. And so the guy shakes his hand and says, I'll be back. So the next day I said, Carl, did you get his name? Did you get a card? No. I was too upset and didn't know what was going on, and I just didn't think of it. So I said, well, never mind, I'll call Legal Aid. So I called Legal Aid. They never heard of this guy. Then I called the, what's the other one? Public Defender. They never heard of this guy. I called the Columbus Bar Association. They never heard of this guy. I called the State Bar Association. They never heard of this guy. So he was not an attorney. And Carl gave him his all his personal information, thinking he was speaking to an attorney. So the next day I called the medical person, head of the medical at his prison, and I say, tell her what happens. And she says, that did not happen. Okay. So that goes on, and then we're just focused on getting his leg fixed or treated, and kind of put that by the wayside. And on August 4th, he wakes up in the middle of the night, and his heart is pounding out of his chest. His pulse is racing. He thinks he's having a heart attack. He goes to the desk and says, I need to go to medical. His CO calls down to medical and says, this man thinks he's having a heart attack. He's white as a ghost, and, blah, 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 blah. And they said, tell him to come back tomorrow at 2 p.m., 12 hours later.
Which I need to interrupt. That's insane. If someone thinks they're having a heart attack, seconds matter. 12 hours? That's insane. I'm sorry.
That's
agree.
okay.
Say that.
That's okay. I agree with you. So he goes back to his room, and he has nitro in his room because he has heart issues. And he takes a couple of nitro, and it settles down. And since August 4th, I have been trying to get him an appointment at OSU to see the cardiologist, because he had seen a cardiologist in 2017, and they had told him to come back, and they would never let him go back. So he hadn't seen one 9 years. So when this happened, I insisted that he see one. And so they said they would, and they would, and they would, and months went by. And then in November, they called him down. Oh, we just found your order to see this cardiologist, and we're going to set up a telemed appointment for you. So on November 13th of this year, or last year, Carl has a telemed appointment, and the cardiologist, same one that saw him in 17, said, why didn't you come back for your follow-up? And he said, they wouldn't let me. And he says, well, we need to do this, this, and this. And he told him 3 things that they needed to do. And November 13th. And so then I gave him a week, and I started calling, when are you going to do this? When are you going to do this? This was recommended it was recommended. That's all. I said, when are you going to do it? And they kept putting me off. And December 28th, Carl starts getting dizzy. And he fell out of bed. And he's a big guy. He's 6'4" and weighs 250 pounds. And it took a few guys to get him up. And they took him to medical. And he laid down there for 4 or 5 hours and was then able to walk. And he went back to his room and they said, we'll see you. You can see the doctor tomorrow. So the next day, Carl went down 3 times to see the doctor. And they said, you got to have an appointment. You got to have an appointment. He says, that's why I'm here. So they never gave him an appointment. And that was the 29th of December. And so on the 30th of December, it was his birthday. And we had a little special thing, video visit and a little birthday celebration planned. And we have a prayer call every morning at 7 a.m. From 7 to 7:15. There's a teaching and a prayer. And we've been doing it for months, I would say 7, 8 months. And he never misses that prayer call. He calls me, before it starts, and we have a little good morning, and then we do the prayer call, and then we have our devotions. And so he didn't call. And I was like, well, maybe, I know he's not feeling well. So maybe he just is tired and sleeping, and I'm trying to reason with myself, but he doesn't miss the prayer call. And so then I kept checking my text, and they have a tablet that they can text, they can call, and they can video visit on. They can send cards and pictures, and they can receive cards and pictures. So all for 10 cents each. So I keep checking my text to see if he's text me, and all of a sudden there's a word pops up, and it's HELP, and that's all. And it shows you who it comes from, and it was from Carl, and I totally panicked for a couple minutes, and then I got myself together, and I said, now what should I do? And so I called his case manager, and I said, I got a very alarming text from Carl. Would you go check on him? And he comes back 20 minutes later and said, he's in medical. He was unresponsive. So I start calling down to medical, and they won't tell me anything, and they won't tell me anything, and they won't tell me anything. Hours goes by, and they won't tell me anything. And I found out through a friend that if they're en route to the hospital, they do not allow you to know it, because you could, get a gang of people and, stop the van, and, you know what I'm talking about.
Try to break him
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, try to break him out. So he, and so then I waited, and it had been several hours, so I called OSU, Ohio State University Hospital, because they service all the 29 prisons in Ohio. And they said he had been admitted. So I at least had some confidence that he was in the right place. And so then I couldn't talk to him, and I just kept calling, and then I just was, wanting to know his condition. And I called a friend who had a little bout, and she called somebody she knew and found out that he was okay. He was responsive now, and that they were going to do tests and find out what was wrong with him. And that was on the 30th of December. And so then we've got the 31st, which is the day before New Year's. And, half the staff is working. So, but they did start some tests. They did a chest x-ray. They did a head x-ray. He saw a neurologist, checked out his brain, saw a cardiologist. They did a CAT scan, and then they did an MRI. And they discovered that he had a 79% blockage in his carotid artery. And that's very dangerous, in case you don't know. And so they, once the holiday weekend was over, then they started, doing some things. And they sent, so he's still dizzy, can't walk, has ringing in his ears. And that was not related to anything. The way the nurse said to me was, we ruled out all the bad stuff.
Oh, we lost her.
So
There you go. You're back.
Okay, they ruled out the bad stuff. So now they got to find out why he can't stand up because he's so dizzy.
Oh,
And so
wait 1 second. I am going to interrupt for 1 second. I just want everyone to remember that he has nearly an 80% blockage in his artery, which could also be restricting blood flow, which could be making him dizzy. But just remember that detail, that he has almost an 80% blockage in his artery. That is a serious condition. That is very life-threatening. Go on, Jen. I'm sorry.
So that's okay. And so the physical therapist comes in and she puts pillows under his back and throws his head back and turns him over one side and stands him up. And she looks at me and she says, I know exactly what's wrong with him. He's got blah, 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 vertigo. And the crystals in his ears are off. And we can cure this with physical therapy. 30 minutes later, after she put that in his chart, that he's gone. They take him to a place called Franklin Medical Center, which is it's a nursing home, and it's for people with minor sickness. They're too sick to be in prison in their cell, but it is a prison. It's a prison hospital, and they have a hospice unit there, and they have a nursing home unit for men that cannot. They maybe don't have a leg or an arm, and they need constant care. They can't live a normal everyday life in prison. So that's where they spend the remaining of their days. And so they take Carl there. And I said, and before he left, the nurse told him, you have 4 more procedures before you leave here. So then when I found out that they moved him, I said, how can you move him without doing these procedures? And they said, well, we'll take him back and forth. Well, he's been there since Tuesday, and I saw him today, and nothing has been done except one physical therapy. And he's much better. He was able to stand up and get a picture taken today at the visit. And that's the first time he's been able to stand up by himself since the 30th. So I called the medical director today, and I said, let's go back.
I was going to say, you missed something about the Innocence Project.
Yeah, so we had contacted the Innocent Project, and I had contacted them, and they had sent him paperwork to fill out. And it didn't come, and it didn't come, and it didn't come. And we had so many other things that we just kind of put it on the back burner. And one day Carl was sitting there, and this man come up and said, Carl, here's some mail that never got opened. And he said, I found it behind the cabinet in the break room. And it had your name on it, and I knew where you were. So he hands him the paperwork, and it's the Innocent Project paperwork for him to fill out because they're interested in his case, because he's obviously innocent, but he spent 35 years in prison. And so we're talking about, so we fill out the paperwork together. I help him. And then we get ready to mail it. And he says, what kind of guarantee am I going to have that this is going to go out? I said, well, send it to me, and then I'll mail it. And they won't know what's in it, if you just send it to me, and you send me stuff all the time. So then he said, well, you know what I could do? I could do a return receipt requested. So he went and paid $10 to get, one of those little green slip that you're supposed to get once they receive it. It tells you who signed for it and everything. You're aware of what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's never gotten that back. So that's the other thing I have to do on Monday. I have to call the mailroom and ask why he never got it back.
So I'm going to pause you there a second. So just to reiterate what she said, the Innocence Project mailed him a packet, and for 5 months, it did not get to him. For 5 months, it sat behind a cabinet in the break room. And finally, someone brought it to him, and he sent it back, and somehow it didn't make it to them, which is just mind-blowing. the Innocence Project, for those that are unaware, is a group of lawyers that donate their time to reinvestigate cases where they believe innocent people were put into prison, and they try to free them.
It's free.
Yeah, they donate their time, their resources, because they see these men and women as victims, because they are victims. They were innocent and sent to prison. And a lot of times it was before DNA testing. DNA got corrupted. You know, there's not corrupted, what's the word I'm looking for? Contaminated. That's the word I'm looking for. Things like that. So they were interested in this case. And 5 months was wasted because it was behind a cabinet. And then he finally mails it to them, and they never receive it.
So I'm going to
mean,
call. I'm going to call
okay.
Monday and confirm that they never received it too,
Okay.
because they may have just not given it back to him. But I am going to check that out. But so on December 26th, the day after Christmas, before he got ill, sicker, he was called on up to have an appointment at the psych office. And he calls me and he's all upset. Why they're trying to say I'm crazy. I've never been to the psych office in my life and never had any issues. And why are they doing this? I said, just go see what they have to say. I said, Carl, it could be good news, because I had the week before sent a 10-page document to the parole board asking for an early parole hearing. Now, let's go back a minute. He's been up to parole for 4 times. After 20 years, he could go up for parole, and they have not allowed him to leave. And one of the reasons is he refuses to say he's guilty, because he said, I'm a Christian and I'm not going to say I did something I didn't do. And if, he would be proven innocent, the state would have to pay him for 35 years.
Yeah.
But if he admits to the crime, then he would have no case. So I read the handbook and went through all the, it took me months, put this package together, and I went through everything they said that you had to do to get a early parole hearing, and documented that Carl had done every one of them. And the last time they said that he didn't get parole because he had a recent ticket, and he had a ticket, but they didn't bother to see that he was found not guilty. And a ticket is a reprimand for doing something wrong. And there's all kinds of different punishments that can come with a ticket. It can be, they can hold your commissary, they can hold your phone, they can hold your visits. There's always different, degrees of punishment. And he was held in what they call the hole for 3 months while they investigated it, and come to the conclusion that he was innocent. But the person that looked at the parole didn't bother to find. They saw the ticket, and the ticket never goes away, but it's the disposition of the ticket is down at the bottom, and you have to look for it. And they said he didn't have anywhere to go, and he did have some places to go, but he didn't have anything documented. So this time we had 4 choices for him, and they were all 4 documented with letters of acceptance. So, it was a pretty good package, I thought. And after she got it, she says he doesn't qualify. And I says, why doesn't he qualify? He met every requirement. She said, because the rule said on page 27 that if you get 7 years on your last parole and you serve half of that time, which Carl served 4 years, he got 6 years and he served 4 years since his last parole. And that you have, that's one of the things that you can have, and your circumstances have changed, which they have. And then you can get an early parole, but not if you have 6 years. And he got 6 years, and they did that on purpose so he wouldn't qualify for an early parole. So officially right now he has 2 years, but we're not accepting that. We're going to try for a medical relief now and whatever else we can come up with. So we're going to fight, continue to fight for his freedom. So now
Under the
let's
under the
go ahead.
medical parole, why
Yeah,
don't you tell them the requirements for the medical? Well, actually, I would explain that there's two different requirements based on how long you've been in prison, because that's ridiculous too to me. That you have to have. It almost seems like if you're new to the prison system, it's easier than if you've been serving time for a long time.
that's true. So if you came in after 2002, you are never paroled. You are allowed to have judicial release after you have spent half of your sentence. And if you came in before then you're go up for parole, and they can, what they call, the inmates call, flop you for as many years as they want. Now the ones that I've been to, the judge says to the inmate, go back and get some programming and get some education, because they now have a Pell Grant that any inmate can go to college at the prison's expense. So, but Carl is still under the parole thing, and he wrote a 15-page document a few years ago, which he should have never done, about the corruption in the parole board and how eventually, with this new law, the parole board is going to be out of a job because all the old timers will have died off or left, and there'll be nobody else on parole from 2002. And that hasn't helped him either. But he did wonderful research on their salaries and everything. It was pretty intense. So now let's go back to December 26th again. This is before he got sick. He was called up to psych. So the psych person, supposedly the psychiatrist, asked him all these questions, the typical questions. Have you ever tried to hurt yourself? Has anybody ever tried to hurt you? Have you ever tried to hurt anybody else? And I'm thinking, well, this is good. They're trying to find out if he's stable enough to leave. And so then Carl, the guy pushes some paper towards him, and Carl said, do you need these back? And he said, no, you can take them with you. And what they were interstate compact paperwork, which is what you have to leave the state on parole. And we're all excited because we think he's going to Florida with me. And so that was the 26th of December. Then he got sick, so it's been kind of on hold. So I called Miss Clemens, which is the person that reviewed his early parole packet, and she told me that he doesn't qualify because he got 6 years instead of 7. And then I told her about this man that came to see him, and she said there was nothing in the making like that. So now we have a third fake person. And so she turned it over to Constituent Affairs, and Constituent Affairs wrote me a letter and said that the parole board had nothing to do with that meeting. They are not considering him to go to Florida, and they have no idea who that was. Maybe I should check with his case manager. So I called his case manager, and I said, Mr. Davis, can you tell me who wrote the pass out? Because they have to have a pass everywhere they go. And he called me back and he says, there's no pass that day or the day before or the day after. Well, I knew there wouldn't be one the day before because it was Christmas. And he said, there's just no pass. And I said, well, how does that happen? He said, well, if hardly anybody was working that day, so they hand wrote a pass. And there's no copy of it. Well, Carl has a copy of it in his pack up, because when you leave your parent institution, they pack your stuff up and supposedly put it in the vault. Most of the time you never see it again. But, and normally when he gets a pass, he sends it to me so that it's out of the prison and I have a copy, or I have the pass. in case we need it. So he says that the pass is in his, and we could see who signed it. But, you know, he's got to get back there and he doesn't want to go back there. I told the warden's assistant today that he was afraid for his life to go back to Marion because they refused him treatment for 10 months and he ended up in an emergency. And so I hope they don't try to send him back there, because I'm going to call. Well, I'm not going to say, but they better not try to send him back there.
And that's my fear with the medical release. They could try to deny it because they have a hospital for him to go to. That worries me.
So what I'm going to do, but I will say this, I'm going to OSU on Monday. I have his power of attorney and I have a HIPAA form. And I'm going to get a copy of his records in case I have to take them somewhere. And, you know, I have a lot of options. I have the newspaper. I have my congressman, his congressman, the governor's office, the Justice Center, NAACP. You know, I have a lot of options, so I'm going to get my hands on a copy of his records. And then I'm going to start calling the prison every day to say, when is this artery thing scheduled? When is it scheduled? Every day I'm going to call.
That's good. I mean, that's a good plan.
So we have 3 fake people that have seen him. The intimidator. Now, what the attorney was about, I thought afterwards, I know what the intimidator was about, which didn't work.
It just made it worse.
And the attorney was about him just kind of backing off because he thought this attorney was going to take care of it. That was the only sensible thing to me. Is there any other thoughts on that?
I would like to know who the other person was that met him in the prison.
And
that
the
he spoke with.
so-called psychiatrist.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when his case manager told me, said there really wasn't very many people there that day. I said, how convenient.
That is convenient.
Oh,
Everything is convenient when it comes
yeah.
to the answers they give.
Now, here's something else I thought. So when I called the medical director to tell her about these 2 people that came up to see him, the intimidator and the attorney, she says that did not happen.
That didn't happen?
That's what she said.
She's basically calling you guys liars.
Yeah, no, not basically. She absolutely is calling. Well, she's calling Carl a liar. That's what she's doing.
Yep.
It's almost like, and it's. Let me correct myself. It's not almost like. It is like the prison system wants to keep the prisoner there for the continued stream of money.
It's job security, and 75% of the people who work for the state of Ohio are Justice Center related.
It's a whole industry.
Yep.
This is just crazy to me. Now, we did look up the requirements for medical release under the parole side. It said that you need an attending physician to fill out a certificate.
Yeah. So if I get his records, I'll have names of all of his doctors. So that's one of the reasons I want to get his records. And then I can, once we have that, I can take it to the governor's office.
Which you have called, and they kept telling you have to do something else.
Yeah,
they can't do anything.
After about 3 months of me calling, they said that I have to work through ODRC headquarters. And at one point, I went down to the headquarters. This was in the summer. I think it was after the heart incident. And I asked to speak to the head inspector. And they have a department called Constituent Affairs. And they hooked me up with this lady that was going to investigate this stuff. And then all of a sudden, she went on vacation, which I didn't think too much about. Then I asked when she's coming back, and they said she's on a permanent leave.
Of course.
Mm-hmm. And this was the one helping you, correct?
She was helping us. She seemed to be a caring person, which it's kind of hard to find.
Yeah.
So it's a bunch of really, really strange things. And I think it might make a good newspaper story.
I don't feel that newspaper reporters go out on a limb anymore to get stories out there if it goes against a large organization that has power.
There
like
is a
back in the
couple
day.
there's a couple that have written some stories about, suspicious murders in prison and, things like that. So there's a couple that'll risk it.
Do you know
But
who they are?
I have their name somewhere. And there was even a lady from England that contacted Carl and wanted him to do a story about his innocence, and the prison wouldn't let him. But if I'd been
course.
involved, I could have done it for him.
So, just to recap, just in Carl's case and just the details that we know of, he has met with 3 people that no one has a record of. No one knows what he's talking about. And one was even implied Carl was lying. His injury to his knee was dismissed as just arthritis, whereas if you were not in prison, you would be sent for follow-up tests after the x-ray. The Innocence Project mailed him a packet to fill out so they could start investigating his case. And for 5 months, it sat behind a cabinet. I'm wondering how the person found it.
He was
It sat back
cleaning.
there.
He was cleaning, and he moved the cabinet.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. That's great luck.
Yeah.
And then when Carl mailed it, you are going to call to verify. It's possible they did not give him a return receipt. That it
I'm
was
going to
received.
call the Innocent Project and see if they got it. Then I'm going to call the mailroom and say, where's his return receipt? Because that's federal. That's federal crime.
You're right.
Yeah.
It is a federal crime to tamper with the mail. That is correct. He also had a medical emergency and was told not to come down to the infirmary for 12 hours.
And that's all documented.
Thank God he had nitroglycerin in his room.
Yeah.
He went to a hospital, was told he had a blockage of nearly 80% in the carotid artery, and was sent away. If any of us went to the ER with that type of blockage, you would be sent to the cath lab and they'd be putting in a stent. It's that much of a medical emergency. We're talking life-threatening territory here. And they sent him away. No procedures done. And only because he can't stand up on his own. And I gotta tell you, I've never heard of the crystals in the ear thing. That's new for me.
Oh,
But-
I read my cousin is a psychiatrist, which they have to be an MD before they're a psychiatrist, and he pulled it up on the net and sent me the papers that showed the pictures and everything. It's exactly what the physical therapist said.
No, I believe you. I'm just saying I'd never heard it before, but I've heard of vertigo.
Yeah, everybody, has heard of that.
Right. And that is the only reason why he's even in the medical facility right now. Because he couldn't stand
Yeah.
up on his own.
Exactly.
But he was complaining of vertigo, or he was just getting dizzy, but he was able to, it was fleeting, and he was able to remain on his feet, he'd still be in that cell.
Yeah. So, we believe, Sandy, that when you're a Christian and you're serving God, that nothing happens to you, that God doesn't allow it. Now, he doesn't make the bad things happen to you, but he allows them. And so I told Carl, I said, we couldn't get you here one way, so we got you here with vertigo, which is not a life-threatening thing. And now, we know what's wrong, and we can, fight for getting it. So I appreciate you letting me share. And he's really a nice guy, doesn't deserve any of this.
Of course. I was going to ask you, do you want, if people have any questions, do you want to answer them? Or
Sure.
I don't know if they do have questions. I just thought I'd ask.
Well,
I can read some of the comments regardless.
okay.
So, hi, Splatter. So the prison system has a two-tiered system. Yes, it does. If you come into the prison system later, after 2002, your release is treated completely differently with a totally different forms to fill out, different requirements than someone who's been serving longer than that. It's kind of crazy. That was Daniel, by the way. Bigger Pick says I will be praying for Carl.
So if we have somebody's thinking of a question, I just want to close with Carl Wages has 50,000 hours of community service documented by the prison system. He has earned over $400,000 for the Susan Komen Cancer Society. They have a walk every October, and Carl's church sponsored him for 20 years. He has walked 60 miles, 20 miles a day for 3 days to get this money for the Cancer Society. Last year, he provided Children's Hospital 505 pounds of pop tabs, which Children's Hospital gives 1 minute of free dialysis to any child whose family can't pay for every pop tab. If you know what I mean, that when you take a pop and you tab it, that little tab up there is it's aluminum. And it's worth money. And he saved 505 pounds. And I have a letter from Children's Hospital verifying that. I have a letter from the Susan Komen thing verifying that. I have a thing from the prison verifying that. He's also walked for muscular dystrophy and many, many, many other things. He also has 5,000 hours of training seeing eye dogs. He's worked in 14 hospitals since he's been in, serving people as an orderly, has 5,000 hours of medical training. He has every certificate that they offer. He has not been in trouble in 35 years. And what good is keeping this man in prison?
That's horrible. Well, I need to clear something up for Mandanimal. Carl did not pay any money. The person in the cell with him, a drug dealer, paid money. According to Carl, the drug dealer that was in the cell with him, his friend brought a briefcase of money for their case. But Carl didn't pay anything. He went to trial.
Because he didn't have it. He says, I'm a truck driver and I can get it. No, we have to have it today. And he says, that's okay. He says, I'm innocent, so I didn't do anything wrong, so I'll just go to trial.
That's the thing, though. It doesn't matter if you're innocent or not. It matters how much the prosecution has spent putting the case against you together.
And how much his defense attorney wants to put into it. It sounds to me like his defense attorney didn't do a really good job.
So Carl asked them at the trial, check under her fingernails because they said she had defensive wounds, and they wouldn't do it. And Carl's 6'4" and weighs 250 pounds, and he said at that time he was 30 years old and just all muscle. And he said Kitty was 5'3", weighed 139 pounds, and Castro was 5'4" and weighed 130-something pounds. So they were pretty much the same size. So that's where the defensive wounds came. And at the trial, I got his transcripts, 685 pages of them. And at the trial, Castro got on the stand and said that Carl told him he was going to kill Kitty because Kitty killed his dog. And Kitty did not kill his dog. His dog ran out in the street, and Kitty and Carl drove to the vet to see if he could do anything for the dog. The vet said no, that the dog would never be normal again, and it would cost $5,000. And Carl said, I can't do that to an animal to make him live and he took him home and shot him and buried him in the backyard.
God. Oh my God.
And
How do they not check under her fingernails?
Yeah, that's like standard procedure.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
And they wouldn't let Carl get and tell his story. I think if he could have told his story. And the other thing that we found out, two things we found out, that the man that come and got Kitty was on the fire department. You know, they called for a bus in case she was still alive, you know. And that man that came and got Kitty was on the jury. And Carl had a 5-day trial, and it was Friday. I guess it was a 4-day because they did the jury on the first day. And this the Innocent Project or somebody, I forget who it was, interviewed one of the jurors, and they said it was Friday. We just wanted to go home, and we couldn't we couldn't agree, so we just decided to go along with the guilty.
Wow. That's horrible.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But going back to the fingernails, like I was saying, back then, 35 years ago, DNA was not used like it is today.
Right.
And they may have the DNA from under the fingernails, but didn't use it then.
No, they didn't even take it.
That doesn't make that
That's
doesn't,
mind-blowing.
that would be like a mistrial.
Well, yeah, for sure.
Because if they didn't do it at the crime scene, the medical examiner should have.
I was going to
For
say,
an autopsy.
Yeah.
should definitely been something done an autopsy.
Yeah.
Latest.
And she had bruises underneath her arms. So, honestly, if Carl would have wanted to kill her, all he had to do, there would have been no fight. 5'3", 139, 6'4". But when she had bruises under her arms, which means that she was holding them up while he was beating her. Castro was beating her. And he wore a long sleeve shirt to the trial. And they asked him, where were you this night? He said, I was in Mexico. And they said, where's your ticket? He goes, oh, I left it at home. And they never demanded to see it. I mean, honestly, Sandy, you think about it. When somebody dies, who's the first person? The boyfriend or the husband, right?
Yes, that's the first person they usually look at, correct?
But they didn't even look, well, I think they did look at him, but I think he had money. And it shows what kind of person he was when, years later, he abducted these girls.
I'm surprised that after he was arrested and convicted, that they didn't, at that point, go and test the DNA. Because in 2013, when he was arrested for what he did with the girls, I'm surprised they didn't run his DNA against the DNA from that case, because he was involved in that case.
Well, they may have, but not from 92. They didn't go back to that.
Is his evidence just he said, she said, like he's saying he's innocent, or is there evidence to support that he is innocent?
That's sickening.
So if we're just going by words, You have the word of one that's been in prison for 35 years without causing any trouble, and someone who walked away from that case, went on to capture, kidnap, and imprison 4 women. I think it was 4.
3.
3 women. Do horrible things to them. Now, and when he took them, they were children still. They were teenagers. And 1 or 2 of them gave birth. So,
Terrific.
if you had to choose between the word of one or the other, which one would you choose? I know I would choose the one that's in prison who hasn't caused any trouble. Now,
Yeah.
I have not seen the details of the case. And I do agree with Jenny. I am surprised that they did not look at the husband, boyfriend first. Maybe they did, though. And maybe just because he was in Mexico, he was cleared. Maybe they were able to verify he was in Mexico. I
He
don't know.
left his ticket at home. Okay,
Yeah, right.
don't worry about it. Man, that's
Yeah,
all.
Carl was saying that he actually got home from Mexico the day before, before the night, the day before. But he said he lied and said he was in Mexico still. That's why he didn't have his ticket, is because if he had his ticket, it would show that he was actually, back in Cleveland the night before.
Wow.
But yeah, I talked to her. The reason she got kicked out, or she got muted or whatever, was because Carl was calling her. So, so she's talking to him. So she told me to tell you, thank you for having her on, and she appreciated, everything, and she'll try to hop on and catch some of your show tonight.
Okay, well, if she's awake, tell her don't push yourself to stay awake. It's late. But
I want to thank her for sharing. Yeah, right.
Josh, I don't know if you can answer the question in the chat, because you did read the case, well, some of the case, right? Is there any evidence to support that he is innocent, like physical evidence? Or is it more just a lack of testing physical evidence, like there wasn't DNA testing back then?
I haven't gotten through a lot of it. It was hard to read. But I kind of went through and just read some of the key witness like when they testimony. Yeah, when Castro was on the stand, and some of the people like that, and there wasn't a whole lot of stuff. I mean, the thing that, according to his story, he's told me his story a couple times, in his own, and he says that he got there in the morning, they found her body, and he leaned down to check her pulse or whatever, and got blood on his clothes, and then he was arrested that same day, that same morning when the cops got there, in those clothes. But then he also said that when he during the trial, there was 2 different police officers that testified that those clothes he was wearing, that he claimed he was wearing, he was booked in into the prison with. The police officers testified that those clothes were folded up, and looked like they had freshly been washed. And one of them said they were in the back seat. They found him in the back seat of the car, and the other officer said they found him in the trunk. But if I was a defense attorney at the time, my first thought would have been, okay, these police officers testified that they were folded up, and laundered, and freshly laundered in the back of the car. Why not just go to pull the police tape when he got booked in that morning and see that he's wearing those clothes, and that would tell you that those 2 police officers were lying. So that was my thought of, but I mean, obviously we can't go back now and get any of that stuff, because I mean, I'm sure they don't have 35-year-old footage of, the prison, the intake, you know what I mean? But if his attorney was worth a shit, back then, that would have been the first thing I would have done, and I'm not even an attorney. So
not only that, there's also the photographs, because they're going to photograph his hands and everything when he's booked. It would show if there's blood on his hands. If there's blood on his hands, then how did he launder the clothes with the blood? So, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That doesn't add up. And it also doesn't add up that one would say the trunk and one would say the back seat.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I haven't found those testimonies yet either, but those are the next ones I was going to look for, is the police officers that testified that, because it just doesn't sound right at all. Like that's enough for a reasonable doubt right there.
Yeah, that's huge.
And it just bothers me that I don't know if I believe that they didn't swab under the fingernails. That doesn't make sense.
Right.
Yeah.
That bothers me a lot.
Yeah, me too. If the police didn't do it, the medical examiner would. They are so thorough.
Yeah.
Let me see if there's any more questions. It's okay, man, Daniel. It's okay to be skeptical. You don't have to say you're sorry.
So are you more at ease about everything now, Josh? Or I mean, I don't know when you I guess got all this information. I guess maybe you've had it. I don't know.
Yeah,
Do you-
yeah. I've had the transcript of
yeah,
the court case for probably a couple months now. I don't know really still. Like I'm
yeah.
still still working through it, but
It's long, right?
it is long. Yeah, I think it's 675 pages or something.
Yeah. That's not an easy read.
Yeah,
It's not. Yeah.
man, it was nice hearing her side and hearing all the details, or hearing his side, I guess, through
Yeah.
her, and it makes me feel a lot better about the situation. Like just hearing all that tonight. But yeah, that's been in the back of my mind, and one of those constant things. I'm sure you're really thinking about a lot. But yeah, I appreciate hearing her story or hearing his story through her tonight. It was really good.
Yeah. His last name is Wages. Carl Wages. Bigger Pick was asking. Wages.
It's also on the thumbnail, his name. And
It was at Cuyahoga County, Ohio.
if all that stuff is happening to him, I can just imagine what's happening to other prisoners in the system.
Yeah.
They're not targeting one person when it comes to getting proper medical care. I mean, the Innocence Project, how does it end up behind a cabinet for 5 months?
How does somebody find it?
Yeah, but
That's wild. Yeah.
5 months. It was like, first of all, how did it end up in the break room?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously
It's
somebody
mail. It
put
should
it
have
there.
gone to him.
Okay, hold on. I'll be right back. She's calling.
Okay. If
Yeah,
she's calling, I'll put her back on stage.
Yeah. How does that not get shredded if they're trying to get rid of it?
Mhm.
That's wild. That is.
Well,
that is kind of
the person trying to
unusual.
get rid of it may not. It was not the same person who found it. So the person who found it may not have realized they were trying to get rid of it.
Yeah. Man.
And that's an assumption. We are not saying that someone was trying to get rid of it. Maybe it fell behind the cabinet and they forgot about it.
Yeah. But who moves a cabinet when you're cleaning?
That's odd to me too.
Yeah.
I agree.
Especially, yeah. That seems that part does seem a little bit unbelievable, kind of to me. But I mean, not unbelievable, but outlandish, I guess.
All right, you back?
She's back. I had to put her on stage. Yeah. Okay, you got her.
Yeah. Can you hear?
But yeah, if like I said, his name is on the thumbnail if you want to verify it. It's the Carl Wages story.
Yeah, she's got all the receipts of all the good that he's done, even from behind prison walls.
Mm-hmm.
That says a lot, I think.
50,000 hours of community service.
That's unbelievable. That is unbelievable.
Well, 35 years is a long
Yeah,
time too.
I mean that's but that's amazing. That's wild.
I mean, that's longer than some of the people in our chat have been alive.
Yep. I mean, yeah, that
wild to me is going to a hospital with an 80% blockage in your carotid artery and being sent home.
Yeah.
That's wild to me.
Yeah. Or popping the pins out of your knee and basically being told to walk it off for 12 months. Is that what she said? Or 11 months, something like that?
Yeah, and also wild is thinking you're having a heart attack and the infirmary saying, come down in 12 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. Sickening, all of that. Torture, and yeah.
It is torture.
Yeah.
It's inhumane, and we have laws to protect against that.
Yeah, I thought it was really, really great that she told his story tonight. It makes me feel a lot better about the situation. I mean, about him, that part of the situation anyway.
I guess with that, we're going to end the stream. Like I said, tonight there will be a show, normal time, a shorter show. We're going to be looking at some things. I want to show you guys a video about a product on the market. If you have kids, they even market to adults, but originally it was marketed for babies and children, but now they're marketing to adults as well. It's a device. I need to show you something about that. We're going to show you Christian's Mandela, which I just finished putting together. But we'll be back tonight, so keep a lookout for us. And then we'll have we have a lot of Mandelas to get to on Saturday. because there's Mandelas that we didn't cover that we were supposed to cover that we accidentally skipped over, like the Mummers. I promised to tell you about the Mummers and we didn't cover it.
Yeah.
I have that presentation to cover plus others for Saturday's show. So, but tonight we will do a short show tonight around midnight. So keep a lookout for that. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank Cushion for joining to talk with me so I wasn't by myself.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me up. I enjoyed being here.
But most importantly, I want to thank Jenny for joining us and telling us her story and Carl's story. Because even if you don't believe any of it, you can still see that there's corruption that needs to be addressed and shouldn't be happening. And I think it's important to get that sort of stuff out there, because the longer it stays in the dark, the longer it continues to happen. So thank you to Jenny for sharing that. I know it's not easy. And Josh, is there anything you want to say before we head out?
Sorry, I'm back.
It's okay. Is there anything you want to tell us or say or info?
Yeah, she just said, tell you thanks again, and appreciate you taking time, let her, tell her story, and hopefully,
Of course.
Get some answers.
That would be great.
Yeah.
That would be absolutely great. But yeah, I think the number one thing to do is follow up with the Innocence Project and follow the instructions that I sent to get that medical certificate thing rolling. Otherwise, it'll be 2028.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Not with that blockage. You can't. That's too late. It's too late.
And your mom is a very kind and thoughtful individual.
She is.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree too. Well, with that, thank you all for being here. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Cushion. And most importantly, thank you to Jenny for sharing the story. We'll see you guys tonight. If you have more questions, the comment section, you can always forward them to Jenny. But I hope you have a great night. Hope to see you later tonight. And guys, time it is. Say goodnight, guys.
Good night, guys.
Good night, guys.
Thanks for being here.
See you guys later. Good night, guys.
Smash the two, smash the two, smash the two, smash the two. Gonna strap up, 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 please turn it off. Why must we watch Friends? 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 I've seen the show about 1,000,000 times. Not even funny when I'm drunk or high. Why must we watch Friends? Why must we watch Friends? Why must we watch Friends? Wait a minute.
This reality is not going to be very pleasant when all the good people leave.
I'm telling you now, over 100 times.
It's not even close. How could you say otherwise? So Lance, everybody, Hebrew 77 here.
I'm doing good. Now that I'm home and I'm working.
Why must we watch Friends? That laugh track is so welcome to me.
Fog that's happening over across everywhere.
No. Pastor of Muppets.
Station man propagating Nivixen Yes.
Working on. Maybe it's cold outside.
Out of your world, it flips back again.
We all come from different realities, like I explained last week.
Watch TV, sit down and catch the belly. Why must we watch Friends? 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 Why must we watch Friends?